Hi everybody. It's been roughly 5 years since my last video here on YouTube, and it seems time that I start making videos again. Within the past 5 years, I've moved several times, and I'm about ready to move again. So it's made things a little bit interesting, needless to say, but a lot's changed in that time frame. At least is my beard here, but yeah, a lot's changed, and I think that it's time that I start this channel back up again. Um, as far as videos here, I do tend to focus mostly on Celtic Reconstructionism, and I'd like to continue to stay with that focus. It's possible that I'll include a little bit of other videos on folk traditions and things like that, because I do feel that it helps buttress the what we know from the primary sources. But it just so happens that a lot of those folk traditions we simply don't have evidence for that they existed past several hundred years ago when they were recorded down. So I'd like to cover some of those as well, because I do feel that they, very likely, a lot of them did continue back further in time to the pagan era, but we just simply don't have the evidence that they did so. But lack of evidence doesn't mean that it didn't happen. A lot of those traditions, I feel, help flesh out Celtic Reconstructionism. Personally, I think that if one were just to stick to the primary sources, it would be a skeleton of a tradition. So a lot of what we have from folklore, like I said, just helps flesh out various Celtic traditions. So I'll be covering that. I'll probably end up maybe becoming a little bit more narrowly focused at times, specifically to the Brythonic traditions, because I feel that here on YouTube there really just isn't much regarding Welsh, Cornish, Breton, or Gaulish paganism. And part of that, of course, is because we simply don't have as much or as large of a body of lore preserved within the Brythonic traditions as we do in the Godoylic. And for those of you who might not know, there's two different groups of Celts, essentially. There's those that are P-speaking Celts, which are Brythonic, which consist of Welsh, Cornish, Breton, and Gaulish. Gaulish no longer exists as a spoken language. It's simply a dead language at this point in time. Cornish was reconstructed, so it is being spoken again, but not with any great frequency. But the Q-speaking Celts are predominantly the Irish and Scottish, who, respectively, the Irish speak Gaelic and the Scottish speak Gaelic. And then, of course, you've got Manx in there too, but I digress. In any case, so where was I going with this? So in any case, I would like to focus more on the Brythonic-speaking Celts and their traditions, at least for a period of time, just simply because there really isn't much out there on it. And some of it, like I said, is due to the fact that we don't have as large of a body of lore amongst the Brythonic-speaking Celts as we do under the Godoylic. But at the same time, I feel that it's also kind of this repeating cycle, because we do have evidence on them. We do have the Mabinogion. We do have a lot of archaeological discoveries. We do have Roman first-hand accounts. So one could say, technically speaking, of things that were directly pagan, we actually have more on the Brythonic-speaking peoples because of the Roman interaction with them than what we do on the Godoylic. That said, it's just that a lot of people do not focus on it. In a way, things that are Irish and Scottish tend to be romanticized a little bit. And here in the States, there also tends to be a lot more people who have ancestry, I suppose, that goes back to those places. So that's why Welsh and Breton and things like that tend to be neglected, is maybe because those individuals don't have a connection to those places. So I would like to kind of focus on those because they are neglected, and I'd like to see those traditions revitalized because there is information there. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that it's really not focused on. So there's a couple books that I feel that are pretty important for people to read if they're going to focus on these traditions. One, of course, is going to be the Mabinogion, or the Mabinogi. Mabinogion was Lady Charlotte Guest's version of the text. The word itself happens to be a mistranslation. It should be Mabinogi. That said, there's several different translations out there. I've got a few. The Lady Charlotte Guest version happens to be the oldest of them. And, I mean, there's some good things about it, but mostly it's not the best. Again, she was the first to translate the text, and for that, I'm eternally grateful to her, but she didn't do it the best. And so there's a lot of words that happen to have a different meaning, or she left out certain sections because they weren't, what am I trying to say here? It offended her sensibilities, possibly, or maybe not hers primarily, but she knew that the people who would be possibly be interested in the text would be offended by some of what was in the text. So she happened to gloss over them. So that's unfortunate. But just for whether it be nostalgia or whether it be just for having an additional text to look at and compare things against, I do have a Lady Charlotte Guest version of the Mabinogion. Patrick Ford happens to be what I feel is one of the best translations of the text. There's also, I believe you pronounce her name, Sinead Davies. She has a very good translation of the text as well. And I think there's a couple others. You also are able to get it in Welsh, if you speak Welsh. I have just a general understanding of some Welsh words. I'm working towards learning the language, but at this point in time, I don't know all that much, to be honest. But I feel that it is important to learn the language to be able to truly understand and be able to feel possibly what some of my ancestors would have felt when, or at least understood when these tales were told. So I do feel that there is a very metaphorical nature to a lot of these tales, and that's something that I'll try to cover in further videos here. At the same time, like I said, I'm not going to be focused all on the Brythonic tradition because there is a lot within Irish and Scottish lore that helps reinforce what we know of Welsh folklore or Welsh mythology. And I guess a side note that I should have here is that there are some scholars who even reject the idea that the Mabinogion is mythology itself, because a lot of what's written in there doesn't necessarily indicate that this person was a god, like Rhiannon. Her name means great queen, and it doesn't necessarily say goddess, but through comparative mythology and what we know of the Gauls, we are able to kind of ascertain that yes, Rhiannon was a god, or a goddess, I should say. So I'll kind of go over some of that information in future videos here. I would like to hear from all of you, though, what you would like to see from out of this channel. Again, I know it's been a long time since I've made a video here, so I'm not sure how many of you are actively looking at this channel anymore. But if any of you could leave feedback here on what you'd like to see, that would be great, and I'll try to fulfill your requests. So just let me know. And like I said, I'll try to cover book reviews, try to let you know resources that are out there, maybe on the net in general, that are worth looking at. Yeah, so in any case, great to be back here and hopefully be posting with regular frequency. Thanks again, and hopefully be posting again here soon.